It is I, Angie Speaks, the evil witch of the woods they told you about, here to spread disinformation and lead the masses astray with the dreaded scourge of Marxism. In all seriousness, 2020 was one hell of a year for me in the channel. I broke up with BreadTube, got cancelled by major media figures, and cemented a place for myself in the nebulous out group. But here's the thing, I don't really feel bad about any of this. In fact, I feel so much better than I have in a very long time. Because to put it in Mark Fisher's terms, I finally escaped the vampire castle. Let he without sin cast the first stone.
That's the thing about sin. It's not up to you what it is. It's up to me.
My journey as a creator has been a long and arduous process of trying to remain principled and consistent in my values while navigating a very hostile media environment where politics are more about image and less about results. Validation is prioritized as our reward in place of material gains, and values changed based upon whatever is popular at the time. I mean, to give an example, in the past few months, social justice discourse shifted from ACAB, hashtag all cops are bad, to let's work with the FBI to fight the fash. The ever-shifting goalposts and the moral posturing are 100 times more manic than anything Trump could tweet, but unfortunately not nearly as funny or entertaining. My criticisms have always been focused on how neoliberal ideology justifies capitalism and all of its excesses, and that includes the way it has invaded our social domain and how we interact with and view others. And this obviously gets a very hostile response. When you criticize modes that are hegemonic, the people who depend on these incentives can often get very hostile. Look what happened when I made the video titled "Social Justice Can Be a Clout Game." It is a marriage of the algorithm's metrics and careerist capitalism that encourages these kinds of self-interested motives. Because of this, we see people taking social justice out of its proper context and presenting it as a commodity to be consumed. I was doxxed, my PayPal was hacked, and I couldn't pay my rent for a whole month. People literally sent me death threats, and some of your lefty media faves were all too quick to remind me that I deserved my plight for daring to question the state of things. I started out the year with around $1,400 on my Patreon and saw a steady decline after I refused to endorse Joe Biden and made vocal criticisms of hegemonic liberalism. And then there's obviously all the accusations of class reductionism, self-hating racism.
And you ain't black.
Thanks, Joe. That's absolutely absurd and also racism. Strasserism, Nazbol, you name it. I've been forced to contend with all of the slander that you can imagine simply for having a universalist class-based focus on politics, but also levity and a sense of humor. My analysis is material, but I'm not above making jokes. We all need to laugh sometimes. I joked the other day that the guy who sat in Nancy Pelosi's chair deserves a mutual aid hand job, comrade. But honestly, after the year I've had, if anyone deserves one, it's me. So, why does this kind of criticism and shitposty humor get such a vehement pushback? Why does the name Angie Speaks seem to drum up such a moral panic within liberal left circles? Why doth the radlib stir so?
I think I specifically said I don't know if Angie Speaks is even a leftist, and I'll substantiate that. Angie Speaks is legitimately one of the dumbest motherfuckers I have ever seen pass themselves off as a leftist.
Well, because the media left milieu is nothing but a precarious jobs market for elite aspirants. An extended MSNBC audition. If you want to get invited to do the TED Talks, you better sell those goddamn party lines. If you want establishment politicians to show up on your streams, or for media outlets to write glowing appraisals of your work and publish them in their well-trafficked publications, if you want legitimacy, credibility, and accolades, you better know your place and not really pose any threat to the establishment. I don't care about any of that shit, and I don't want to build a career on open contempt for the intelligence and material interests of everyday people. Neoliberal ideology tells us that everything is for sale, nothing is sacred, and you're not really supposed to have any principles or affiliations beyond what's optically expedient. Liberal hegemony animated well-meaning people to spend all summer screaming ACAB in the streets, while also manufacturing consent to elect the author of a racist crime bill and a prosecutor, all the while telling dissidents to shut our mouths and be happy about it. They tell us that Black Lives Matter, unless those Black lives are inconvenient to the hegemonic ideology. Note, Adolph Reed, Black Marxist scholar, literally cancelled by the DSA. They'll celebrate big tech's dominance over our social domain and tell us it's to keep minorities safe and not to squash dissent. And they'll waste time and resources impeaching a president that had 3 days left in office while not passing Medicare for all during a global pandemic, which should be a no-brainer, or at least a bare minimum. Remember, there is no real alternative, but we must stand. I mean, it's gotten to the point where principles no longer matter and people are literally willing to forego the collective good in favor of team sports politics. Just look at the response from major figures on the left to the Capitol riots. People openly celebrating extrajudicial killings. Major media figures and journalists using extermination rhetoric against political opponents, while also celebrating overreach of power, corporate censorship, and lionizing the FBI as the vanguard in the fight against fascism, the Anti-Fascist Bureau of Investigation. And I'm not just talking about random Twitter anons. I'm talking about journalists from established publications, media figures, and sitting members of the Democratic Party. I'm done with this, and I don't want any part of it. And if it means being cast into the ever-expanding ideological basket of deplorables, then so be it. I'm more than happy to continue being the evil witch of the woods, if it means keeping my moral compass intact. Here's the thing about the witch of the woods though. Even though polite society hates her, even though she's a moral taboo, people still visit her when they want the true tea. And she also serves a vital function in the community. So I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not going to cower. I know my value, and I also appreciate all those who see it too. As the neoliberal order continues to evolve more and more authoritarian excesses, it is important to remember the power of honest conversation and fearless examinations of subversive knowledge, especially now that that new order, backed by a censorious and trigger-happy big tech, is attempting to label any and all dissent against it as rooted in hatred or bigotry. Yes, that's right. Looks like Crime Bill Joe is poised to pass legislation to limit the functions of political dissent. Silicon Valley is already way ahead of him though, taking down Antifa accounts, Palestinian BDS accounts. Facebook even took down a Socialist Workers' Party account in the UK, and the list goes on and on and on. If you thought that their power over us only affects the bad people, you've got it wrong. It affects everyone. But like I said, I'm not going to cower. I'm in this for the long haul, and I'm willing to do the ideological dirty work and say and examine all the things that we are disincentivized to say and examine. I'm not here to be a careerist, and refusing to sell party lines actually affects my bottom line. Unlike many of the other left video essay faves, I don't have a team behind me, and I have very limited funding. But I still do my best to produce high quality and entertaining content as frequently as I can on a shoestring budget. And although the idea of a solitary witch in the woods is a powerful archetype, I'm only human. This year and last year, I've had to put out more fires than any previous year, because I've made my criticisms much more pointed and explicit. Take my Joker video, for example, where I contended with the accusation of class reductionism and demystified how it is used to obscure pressing class concerns. That cost me support with the folks that want to be told they're right, and that if only everyone else believed what they believed, the world would be a better place. Between dealing with the precarity that this mode generates and defending a more universal politics, I've been trying to make more with less. This is why I need your help. The price of being based is not cheap these days. I got fired from my job at BreadTube, so now I'm seeking compensation for moral injury. While the actual spreaders of obfuscation and disinformation go home fat, those of us who are trying to remain principled are often barely scraping by. This mode is actively hostile towards people like me, and in order for us to keep going, we need all the support we can get. I don't know about you, but I personally don't want to live in a woke dystopia of thin blue line Karens and blue checkmark libs auditioning for their spot in the limelight of the liberal elite. So if you feel alienated by the mode that's currently operating, just know that there are others like you out there, and those of us who are creating content on the regular need your support. Since I started Angie Speaks around 3 years ago, I haven't really done a huge ad campaign or made too much noise about my Patreon, so I'd like to let you guys know what I offer in case you'd like to support the channel and my endeavors and what I'm doing currently. I have a Patreon that's full of rewards, bonus content, a private Discord, and you can become a member and support the channel for as little as $2 a month, or whatever amount that you can spare. Another way that you can support the channel is by purchasing my very, very witchy tarot-themed merch. I worked with a really cool designer called May, and those are available, link in the description. But I also understand that we're in a global pandemic and funds are limited for everyone right now. So if you're unable to support the channel, I recommend joining my Substack, which is an email list where I'll send you monthly updates with new videos, whatever content that I've been up to, episodes of Low Society, diatribes about, current events. So if you want to keep up with what I'm creating and what I'm doing, please join my Substack. There's also a link to that in the description as well. I'd also like to profusely thank all of the wonderful people out there who have supported the channel and my evolution as a creator throughout the years. And I want you all to know that 2021 means big things for Angie Speaks, because Angie speaks, and Angie will never ever stop speaking.